Granger, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Man, thanks for having me.
Thanks for the package too. You sent me some new Yee gear, and I appreciate you guys sending that out my way. It sounds like you guys have a new launch coming up here in a week or two, March 19th, I think it is.
Yeah, do you like it? What do
I
you
love it,
think?
man. I love it. Yeah, I love it. And my boy loves it too. He's my oldest. I've got four kids, but my oldest is like, "Oh, can I have this?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, but it won't fit you. But it'll probably be a year or two before all of my stuff fits him. He's already wearing my shoe size. He steals my hats. He steals my geese. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how it's working out with him getting as big as I am already."
Love it, man. Yeah, well, if you don't like the stuff on this launch, then there's always the next launch. So we'll just keep on sending stuff to you.
I thought you were going to say, if you don't like the stuff on this launch, screw off. That's what I thought you were going to say. But
No, no, not that.
no, it's good, man. I like what you guys are doing. I really appreciate not just obviously the brand, but what you guys stand for and what you're all about. So it's pretty cool to be able to have a conversation.
Thank you, brother, very much.
And you got a new music video, I think, that just came out yesterday as well. I watched it just this morning. Turned out really good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, this is, I've done a lot of music videos, but this one was unique in a lot of ways. It was first of all, it was the first all night shoot. So we started shooting it, as soon as the sun went down, and we finished up about 4 a.m. So that was my first time to do that. I know a lot of people have done that before.
Yeah.
It's popular in movie making, when you got to shoot a night scene. And it's crazy that the music video is only 2.5 minutes.
And it went all night.
All night to get
that actually seems pretty. When you said it was in one night, that actually seems pretty quick. But with the set that you guys had on the road and the truck and everything else, it seems like, all right, we got a limited time to be able to do this. We can't spread this out over a couple of nights.
And that all falls really on the producer and the director.
Yeah.
Because a director like this guy TK, we've worked with him several times before, and man, he has his shot list created before we start, and it has the song written out lyrically, and each minute and each second that each word is said is highlighted. And then underneath the second, the minute, the second, and the lyric, it has the shot that he needs. And so he literally goes through that shot list, and he has to plan it. So you don't shoot in order,
right?
You shoot in order of how your scenes are set up. So, and I'm sure I've never shot a movie. I'm sure it's the same way though. You might shoot the last scene first, just
right. It's not chronologically.
On the light that you need, the setup that you need. And so a good producer will know while the director is filming one shot, he's prepping the secondary crew on the next shot coming up, lighting it, getting it ready, getting the environment set, so that then you could literally finish that first shot, and then the director goes, all right, where's my second shot? And the producer goes, right over here. Okay, we have this set up. The director gives a few yes or no's according to the environment. And that way you could literally go shot, go down the list and accomplish everything you need in one day. And it's a money thing too. I mean, you got to have a crew, you got to pay them.
Right.
And you can't go for another day. I mean, that would double your budget.
Yeah, at least. It's interesting too, because I think what a lot of people, even if as you're explaining this for a 2.5 minute video, you're shooting all night, then you've got production, then you've got all the camera equipment and the lighting and the props and everything else, and the amount of investment that goes into it. And it's really interesting because what most people will see and only acknowledge is, 2.5 minutes. And they won't see everything. I think about this with fighters too. You see a guy get into the ring. I watch UFC quite a bit. And you see these guys get millions and millions of dollars of payouts, like Amanda Nunes, for example. I don't know what she made, but millions of dollars on that fight. And she was in the fight for what, a minute and a half? And so people will say, she just made, $10 million an hour or something, or whatever it equates to. And it's like, no. No, you don't understand how this works, because she's put in years and years and years. Same thing with you performing.
Yep.
People probably look at you and a performance and think, oh yeah, anybody can do that. And they negate the 2 or 3 decades of work to get you to where you are right now.
Absolutely. And even so in my world and in the fighter's world, similarly, you look at a fight that lasted, 4 minutes in a knockout. Well, he or she had to travel to that location. They had to get the hotel. They had to do all the preliminary check-ins. And so, the minimal fight is going to take what you could tell me 48 hours at minimum of just
getting
to go in
there
ring
and getting
for
ready.
40 minutes, for 4 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get that a lot? Do you get discounted a lot with the amount of work that you've put forth? Because I think from my perspective, I imagine people will look at you and think, all right, well, here's a guy who's extremely successful. He's got the music career he's doing really well with. He's got his brand and his apparel company, and he's got this YouTube channel. Do you find that people are discounting and dismissing what it's taken to get there? And I mean, is that something that, I don't want to say bothers you, but how do you address that with people?
Yeah, I would say it's 1% of 100 will address that and talk about it. The 1%, as we know, as most things in life, the 1% is pretty loud.
Yes, they're always the loudest for sure.
They make themselves heard. But most people, 99% of people, realize that there is no such thing as overnight success. There's no such thing as really even a flash in the pan. It takes an army, not just that one person. If you're speaking in terms of a singer, it takes an army of booking and management and band and crew to pull this off consistently over years and decades to create something that's called a successful career.
Right. Yeah. And it's probably interesting for you because how young were you when you got started in, we'll just say professionally performing, singing, et cetera?
Yeah. I guess the best starting point for me is when I could say, this is paying the bills.
Right.
Like I don't have another job that's making more money than what I'm doing. I had supplemental jobs a lot through that process, but when I would say this is my main gig, I was 20 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm about to turn 42 this fall.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. Over 2 decades of work to get you to the point where you are now. When you started, I imagine it was just you, maybe your family, your brother. I know you're really engaged with your brothers. Your brother's there today, it looks like, but it was probably just you, singing at bars, trying to get gigs, doing some things with your family. I mean, there probably wasn't a promotion team or a crew or anything else going on.
No, and it's a great point because when I see people that are wanting to get into the industry, usually your first reaction is to look for, I got to find a manager. I got to find a booking agent. When I find a booking agent, things are really going to take off. Or they'll say, I got to get a record deal. As soon as I get that record deal, man, it's just going to fall in place. And I always try to dismiss that as quickly as possible, because if you can't establish yourself just from you and you alone at the beginning, if you can't do that, there's no way you're going to be able to manage it at a larger level. All those things really have to come exactly at the time that you need them the most. And so in terms of a booking agent, I always tell people, they say, man, if I could just get a booking agent, or some people say, if I could just get away from the current booking agent and get with a better one.
Yeah.
And I always say, man, Tyler and I at the very beginning, we were just cold calling venues by ourselves way before we wanted to trust a booking agency. When you're the low man on the totem pole there, we were cold calling venues and saying, hey, you never heard of us? We'd like to come. How's Saturday night, the 15th, work for your schedule? And they'd say, man, we don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you don't have to pay us anything. Just pay us the door. Give us 100% of your door, and we'll charge $5 a ticket. I don't know. My Saturday nights are pretty booked. Then give us a Thursday. Give us a Thursday night. How does that look for you? So it really starts with, like any other sales job, cold calling.
Yeah, I remember when I started this organization, this movement here, I reached out to an organization that was putting on an event for men. And I reached out, and I had no business doing this, but it sounds very similar. I said, hey, I want to come speak at your event. And the guy was like, who are you?
Yeah.
I said, I'm just a guy that wants to talk at your event. I've got some things to share. And they're like, no, you're not coming but come to the event and introduce yourself. And so I did. I bought the ticket. I went out there, I spent some time, and I ended up speaking at that event for 4 years following. But it took me having the balls to go say, hey, I want to go speak at your event, when I actually had no business speaking at this guy's event.
That's awesome. If you don't hear enough times someone say, "Who are you?" then you're
Mhm.
not doing the right things at the beginning.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need people to say, "Who are you?" And then your answer is, "Let me show you."
Right.
Right? Like that's the right question to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. It's I don't want to say it's easier now. I mean, it might be just because you have name recognition and people know who you are, but the other facet of that is you have this incredible tool called social media that you guys have tapped into so well with your company, with your brand, with Earl. You've got everything going on. And that's probably been just a tremendous blessing for you when, 20 years ago, we didn't have that. We didn't have social media 20 years ago to be able to tap into the leverage of reaching people across the planet in a blink of an eye.
Man, I think there's a good argument that if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have made it in the traditional route.
Mm,
And so yeah, it's been a huge blessing. We realized quickly that through trying to get gigs and play a show on a Saturday night and playing to a bartender and a couple of random people that just accidentally walked in the bar, we would have better success really thinking about a really viral Facebook post that we could do, or some really
mm,
catchy video we could put on YouTube, and we would have better success or better odds of reaching more people through really good contemplation on a Facebook post than we would going into a random bar and just trying to, put a notch in the belt and saying, there's another gig
mm.
for the books that probably meant nothing to anyone or including your career.
Right. Right. Yeah. You guys have harnessed it so well. How have you developed that over time? What are some things that maybe you ran into, some pitfalls, or how has that evolved? I know my messaging has certainly evolved over a period of, 6 years. And I think it's gotten better. We become more efficient. We figure out what people are interested in. We communicate in a way that resonates with people. How has that changed for you over the past, what is it, 10 years or so now?
Yeah, I think trying to always keep a pulse on what people are needing, what people are, how people are connecting, and what
Mm-hmm.
style. It's usually the same message you're getting out. It's just how you're relaying that message. So, at the beginning, it was MySpace, and MySpace operated a certain way. And I remember Tyler and I were going to these big country music accounts and going to their fans and then adding them as our friends. Like that was a
Right.
good way to start.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
it it leads back to the question, like you said earlier, well, who are you? Well, come and find out, and at
Yeah.
least it gets you the opportunity. So as that evolved, as social media evolved, we tried to always keep it in-house, as authentic as possible, never sending out. We kind of made it a rule to never send out a message that after the sentence we posted would say dash Granger team,
Mm.
as if some big team is making,
Yeah.
like,
Trying
no
to
one
make
really
yourself
wants
bigger
to
than
see
you
that.
are.
No one cares about your team and what your team
Yeah.
has to say about you. So we try to always keep it in very conversational terms, as if we had 10 fans and we're speaking directly to them all the time.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that, among others, that I've seen you do very well. It seems to me like anybody who would connect with you, either something like this via Zoom or one to one, would already feel like they're your friend because it is you. It doesn't seem like it's manipulated. It doesn't seem like it's overly curated or produced because you talk about what works and you talk about what doesn't. You've talked about personal issues and hard times. And I think that's what really resonates with people, why they want to be connected with you in some way.
I think we try to always keep in mind who's listening.
Mm,
And that goes to what you're saying. For instance, in the early days of Twitter, I knew that we had followers. We didn't have a lot, but I knew we had followers that were sprinkled all over. And so for me to go on Twitter and say, doors open at 6, drink specials, 10% off well drinks, first 30 people in the door get, and we're talking about San Angelo, Texas, when our followers on Twitter, we might have 47 followers that are around San Angelo,
hmm.
and the rest of them were not. And that it starts to look like spam, and
Yeah.
it becomes not interesting to everyone. So I try to always keep in mind who's listening when I post something, and is this going to be relative to all the people listening. And we would always hit these stumbling blocks with, say, a venue that would say, could you get Granger to post? And we still get this today.
Oh, I bet.
Can you get Granger to post one more time about the show Saturday night? And it's like, well, you're in Columbus, Ohio. And if we hit all of our followers too hard about Columbus, Ohio, they're not going to want to follow us anymore because they're not there. And that's
I'm in Maine. I'm like, I don't care what's happening in Ohio. It doesn't matter to me. How does that apply to me?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So when you say who's listening, who is listening? Like, who is it that you want to serve? What kind of individual does that look like? What kind of values are you trying to communicate and portray to them? Because look, man, I look at you more than just a country music artist. Like there's more behind it. You're not just singing songs. There's messages. There's values. Who is it that you're trying to resonate with?
Yeah, that question has evolved over the last couple of decades for sure, on who's listening and why do I want them listening to me. And that's evolved. It started as a pretty wide brush stroke. We want people to pay attention to us. That was the ultimate goal at the very beginning.
Sure.
Pay attention to us. Here we are. And this is funny, or this is really dynamic, or this is crazy. Watch this or listen to this. And then as the years went by and we realized, as Tyler says, who our tribe is, and we would speak more directly to the tribe, to the people that want to be pulled in and hear a deeper thought from me. Or, if I'm out on a morning walk and I'm thinking about something and I think I want to share this with my followers. I wouldn't probably have done that 15 years ago. I would have said, new album coming April 17th, get excited. Retweet.
Right.
I would have said that. So, and as I get older, I think the message I want to send gets a little bit more intimate and less about how many retweets or followers or reposts or comments or likes I get, and more about spreading a message of hope and integrity, positivity, things that an anxious world probably needs to hear.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Do you ever get concerned about sharing too much personally, or even your wife? Does she get concerned about what you put out there and how connected and how much you're sharing about your own personal lives?
Yeah, I do. And I can't speak for Amber, my wife. She kind of operates differently on social media, and she does share a lot, and she has just unbelievable engagement on her socials.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that level of engagement, the intimacy she has with her followers. I don't have that. I have more followers that are less intimate, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with that. And there's times when either things are really down for me or things are really, really good for me. And both of those scenarios, I'm always careful when I share it, because not everyone is going through a joyful time, and not everyone is going through a dark time. And so I have to kind of play it where I want everyone to listen to this message, whether you're in a good time or a bad time. And I'm not going to brag about my good times. Man, life is good.
Yeah.
The sun is shining. I'm out here, man. I'm out here on the lake. Life doesn't get any better than this. It's okay to do that. But I always have to realize as I'm posting that somebody reading that is going through hell right now. And it's not going to help them at all to listen to my message. And the same is with the opposite. So I always try to keep that in mind. And I don't ever really go too deep in what I'm feeling, because that's I have to save some stuff for personal.
Yeah, I get that. And it's an interesting perspective when you say that. I'm not going to share, like you said, you're careful about when the highs and lows are. that's different actually than what a lot of people do. Cause I think what we see more often is the zero F's mentality, right? Like, I don't give a shit what you're dealing with. And, this is my life. And I can see that level of, maybe just a little bit more empathy or understanding, how that actually is a pretty good approach in a world that seems to be increasingly selfish,
Sure. I try to always paint things with the level of gratefulness with everything, whether it's highs or lows. You could be grateful when you're low, you could be grateful when you're high. And I think if you kind of paint with gratefulness as an undertone in everything that you're saying, then it means more. So for instance, I love snow skiing. I love it. So if I'm up on top of a mountain, and I like skiing by myself, I get up on top of a mountain and there's always a lift that'll take you to the very top, and I'll look around. And my first instinct is always pull out the phone and give a big old awesome Instagram post, this beautiful panorama. And I always try to, when I do that, I always try to paint that with a good hint of gratefulness. Like, man, I'm up on this mountain. Perspective, tomorrow I'm going to be back in the grind. I'm going to be working again. I'm going to be grinding something out down in, wherever I'm going to be tomorrow. Going on no sleep. But right now, I'm going to soak in this moment, knowing that I don't get these that often. And I'm going to take in this beauty. I'm going to take in this clean air that I'm breathing, and I'm going to love it so much for what it is. And I'm grateful for this moment. So I just always try to paint it that way. So then if you're down and you read that, you could think there's hope.
Right.
If you're up and you read that, you could be reminded that you got to be grateful too.
I think and what I hear you say too, is there's an element of being present in the moment too, where you're sitting there, you're at the top of this mountain, you're looking at the beauty, you're grateful you get to do this thing that not everybody gets to do. And that makes you more present in the moment. It seems to me, and this is a weird dichotomy because you're public facing, you have to promote yourself. You have to put yourself out there. It's part of your career and your choices. But there's this push to I got to show everything to everybody. And I'm working on a project right now with my son, and a lot of people know because I've shared things about it. We're building a canoe, and I've had a lot of people like, "Oh, you're going to post a video and you're going to break this down for him." And actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll show you some pictures of the progress and things, but I am grateful that I get to do this with my son. And I actually just really want to be present. I don't want to curate any content around doing this project together, because that's not the purpose of it. But it seems like in society, we've got so wrapped up in, what kind of angle can I take with this? And what kind of content can I curate from this so that people can think I'm maybe more important than I actually am? And then we lose the presence of being there and the benefits of being there in the moments.
If you could master both levels of what you said and be present and be in the moment and enjoy that moment, and then slice out a little bit of time to create content to share that gratefulness and that presence with other people, then I think you could kind of accomplish the best of both worlds. But it has to start with what you said. It has to start with you being in that moment and seeing that yourself with your own eyeballs and not through the iPhone camera. And truly soaking that in.
How do you personally deal with that as your demand for time and attention and your energy increases and will only continue to increase as we progress?
Yeah, it's not as hard. I know you know this, but just speaking out loud, it's not as hard as everyone wants to think, because we have so much trash time in our lives. I've read it in terms of unconscious time, and that is, you think, how could you be so busy and still carve out time for yourself? No one is that busy. We get sidetracked so easily. How many times have we looked at a YouTube video and then seen the one pop up below it, and you get sucked down this rabbit hole, and then 23 minutes later, you're still staring at your app, your YouTube app. And that happens to all of us. And so to be aware of that you just trapped yourself in a rabbit hole. And there's ways to get around that. One, I never wake up and look at my phone. I have a set time when I could finally, there's not really a time, but there's a sequence of events I have to do in my morning before I get to my phone. And then at night, I don't sleep with my phone in my room. So there's a sequence of events I do before bedtime when the phone is now put away. It's on the charger in the other room. And that's usually about 9 o'clock. And so after 9 o'clock, and that could change, but about 9 o'clock and on, it's wind down time. It's routine. It's me and Amber. The kids are down, and I'm not. So that becomes my being in the present moment. That time I need for myself. And then at the same time, then you can carve out times in the day and go, all right, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's all go. It's all work time. And in that work time, I still have to be aware of falling unconscious to the phone or getting sidetracked by, this and that. And then all of a sudden, when you start realizing that, you realize I had a lot more time than I thought I did during the day.
Yeah, it's amazing how much time we waste. But those boundaries that you're talking about are crucial. But it also takes some intentionality. I don't think anybody's going to be able to create those boundaries that you're talking about or putting these little systems in place if they aren't deliberate and intentional about their day. It just seems like most people are just going with the flow, wherever it takes you. The current's going that way. Okay, I'll go that way. And they never carve out that time you're talking about to think about, is this activity helping me? Is it serving me? Is it hindering me? What can I do more efficiently or effectively? Or do I need to get rid of this? They just don't have the time. I should say it this way. They don't take the time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. They want to say they don't have the time.
Right.
And hey, I get it. I'm human just like anyone else. And I'm no better than anybody else when it comes to managing time. If I leave myself to my own device, then I'm going to fall victim of that unconscious time constantly. So like you said, it's if you want to stop, for instance, if you want to say, I want to really cut back on eating chocolate chip cookies. I love them. Or really cut that out of my life. You can't leave a big jar on your counter
right
in the kitchen when you walk past it. You leave yourself to your own device, you're going to reach into the jar. We're not strong enough as humans to avoid that kind of temptation. So the best thing to do is get the jar out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you go through a weaker time, you're not going to stick your hand in the jar. It's the same thing with the phone, same thing with carving out family time, same thing with really having some deep work focus time whenever you are working on your career.
Mm-hmm.
And not falling into that kind of temptation. It's like you said, you have to be deliberate about first understanding that you're human, you're going to fall victim to it unless you actually set some true tangible guidelines for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. How do you view your career aspirations and your desire to be a family man? Because I know you have both and I have both, and most guys listening have both. Do you view those as conflicting pursuits, complementary pursuits? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I heard it put like this one time. It's because you're right. We have to have both. You got to have both. You can't say I'm a family man first and foremost. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really true, because then you're not following the pursuit of your heart that's put inside you, the desire to chase your dreams and follow your aspiration. You got to have that, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be a good family man. You're going to be lonely and depressed and static. You can't be a good family man unless you have an adventure. There's a great book called Wild at Heart. I love this book.
John Eldridge.
Yeah, John Eldridge, and then that speaks to that. You gotta have your adventure. And as a wife, you can't take that adventure away from your man. So I've heard it put like this before. It's like juggling balls. We all have to juggle. You got your rubber balls and you got your glass balls. So when you're juggling, your family's your glass,
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever drop that. You could occasionally miss one of the rubber ones. It could hit the ground. It bounces. You could pick it back up. You could enter it back into the juggling, but never let go of the glass. That's going to break. You cannot let go. And so I think of it that way. It's a juggle. It's a juggle. And you got to have it both going at the same time, but it's okay to accidentally miss the career and let it bounce.
Yeah.
You'll pick it back up.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I've never considered it like that. The glass and the rubber balls. You had, and I asked you about this out of respect for you, but you had a very traumatic life event several years ago with the loss of your son, River.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of those glass ball moments where you thought, okay, this stuff out here needs to be put on hold and I need to re-engage here because I don't want to let that go. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's moments, we all have these moments. And if you haven't had it yet, then it's coming, because it's just, that's what we do as humans. We suffer well. The people don't like to hear that, people want to think that they could try to make their life free of suffering and nothing but happiness. But the reality is that the cemeteries are full of people that ended up suffering at some level. Yeah. And that's our human nature. We as a family, we had this event that was kind of the unthinkable event that happened 2 years ago to us. And I had to drop everything. Really, I had to drop everything. I had to not only deal with my own grief and loss, which was, just unthinkable and the darkest of times. I not only had to do that, but I also had to realize that I'm still a husband and a father to two beautiful kids that need my support, that need me to lead and guide them in the right way. Mm-hmm. And early on, I didn't decide to, I had to make it a priority to balance my own grief and loss with still moving forward with the family in a positive direction, so that the other two kids saw strengths through that and were able to have a somewhat normal life when they went back to school that fall, for instance. Mm-hmm. And that's still a challenge to this day. I don't think I'll ever master it, but it goes back to that word being deliberate and making that intention to continue to lead them and guide them while I'm dealing with my own trouble.
How much of your grief and your sorrow that I can't even imagine you must have experienced did you allow your children to see? Did they see that? Did you have conversations about that, or did you try to take a more stoic approach with them? What did that look like?
Yeah. I let them see it, and I didn't let them see all of it. Mm-hmm. I let them see what I thought they were capable of understanding and seeing. Meaning, I didn't want to walk around. I wanted to be a zombie. I wanted to walk around and just head to the ground, kicking dirt, tears in my eyes, shouting at God. I wanted to be that guy. At the same time, I needed them also. I needed them to see strength and see a smile and see me tell them it's going to be okay. And then I had to balance that with, guys, it's okay. Whatever you're feeling right now is okay. If you're sad right now, you should be. It's okay. If you feel happy, that's okay too. If you want to smile right now, that's okay. That's completely up to you. There's no wrong emotion you could have during a crazy time like this. I'm not talking about 24 hours in. I'm talking months after. If you see something the dog does that's funny, laugh, and don't feel guilty about laughing, because River's not here anymore. And I wanted them to see that from me and kind of show them that example. So I had to balance what I wanted to do, be a zombie, and then what I knew I needed to do. I needed to be strong. I needed to show them tears when they needed to see it, that dad is vulnerable just like you. Dad goes through highs and lows just like you, but dad's also going to always be here to protect you and to show you what's best through all of this.
Yeah, man, that's very powerful. You guys created a foundation in his name. Were the kids part of that? And was that part of the grieving process, but also part of the healing process for you guys too, is trying to turn this into a situation where some good would come of the event itself?
Absolutely. Yeah. River is a part of our daily conversation. He's part of our lives daily. We talk about them. We're at a point now, 2 years later, where there's a lot of laughing that happens when we think about Riv. We smile, we laugh. Remember when River was dancing on the table and he said this, and we laugh? That's really good. But there's sad moments too, of course. And the good thing is he's a part of our daily conversations, our daily lives. He's a part of our family and always will be. And I expect the kids to be grown adults thinking of stories of River and including them in conversations with their friends and many people that never got to meet him. And so creating the foundation was an important way for us to continue that legacy for people that never knew him or never met him, and to continue the thought that we believe as Christians that there's no accidents, that God has a plan. He has a sovereign plan, and although sometimes we don't understand it and we might not want to believe it, but we tell the kids that everything happens for a reason, and we could find meaning and purpose through River's little legacy, through this foundation, knowing that as we see other lives affected and other people helped through, whether that's a financial donation through the foundation, or it's us actually, like we did with this ice storm, get out with the kids and actually try to feed those that didn't have water or food. And we try to instill that purpose with them. Like, there's meaning behind all this. Nothing is for nothing. Nothing is an accident. And I think it really helps the kids move forward like that.
Yeah, I imagine. It's interesting as you talk about with your kids, giving them permission in a way to experience and deal with a situation on their own, and then tell them that it's okay to laugh and it's okay to smile. I imagine there's a lot of guilt that comes with that. But what about for you? Like, how did you give, I don't know if permission's the right word necessarily, but at what point did you realize, it's okay. I can get back to my career pursuits. I can chase my other endeavors that are important to me. How did you come to terms with that?
The only way I came to terms with it was just facing it head on. I wanted to just hide. I wanted to disappear. There was a good amount of time when I wanted to just disappear and never be seen or heard. You'll never hear from Granger Smith ever again. That was my first real inclination. Let's do that. I want to do that. I want to disappear. I want to go and just bury my head somewhere. And pulling out and going back into life, going back on tour. We went back on tour about a month after the accident, and I brought the whole family with me. Mm-hmm. And going on stage for the first time was a terrifying experience for me. Going back on stage, facing fans, when in my mind I'm thinking that all of them are looking at me going, there's the guy that lost his son.
Yeah, very
there's
judgmental.
Oh man, poor guy. Or even worse, poor irresponsible man. Lost his son. He failed in the one thing that you have to do. Get him to 18 and get him out of the house. That's what everyone says. Get your kids out of the house at 18. So there's the guy that failed at the one thing you're supposed to do. In my mind, that's what they're thinking.
Right. And that's probably what you're thinking about yourself too, is it?
Absolutely. So then I went to the show the next day, and it was the same, not as bad. And every show after that was a little bit less. And as I faced the world and I went head on into that, I found that now I started looking at the crowd, looking out at the people individually and looking into their eyes and thinking, there's a person that has pain. There's a person that's suffering in some way. And it could be anything. Everything is relative when it comes to suffering. I mean, Someone could have lost their dog yesterday, and that's terrible. Losing a dog is terrible. It's relatively speaking to what you're doing and who you are in your life. And I look into their eyes, and it's instead of feeling some kind of weird judgment back at me, I started feeling a connection. Like there's a guy on stage that's suffering just like me. I lost my grandmother last month, and it's hard. And that guy lost his son, and we could have this moment as humans. And then I said, I want to feed on that feeling. Instead of the judgment, guilt feeling, I want to feed on that. I want I want to focus on the people that need to hear or need to see that guy lost his son and he's out here doing this. He's out here playing music. He's doing it. I could do it now. I've been struggling over the loss of my grandmother, and I can't even imagine going back to work, but that guy's doing it. And I could do it. And so I started feeding on that. And that slowly, day by day, mattered more and more.
I when you're saying that, I hear almost a sense of I don't know, duty or responsibility in you showing up for the people that want to be connected, whether it's just to listen to your music or laugh at one of your memes or in whatever way. I feel like as you're saying that, that you might have some sort of sense of duty or obligation. Is that right? Do you feel like
there's
that?
a huge sense of that? And I believe as a musician, when we started finding success, I realized quickly, this is not on my own merit. The success is happening because the community is supporting this artwork that we're putting out there. And so my responsibility back to that community that's allowing me to do something as crazy as get paid for playing music, then my responsibility back was the words that you said, to show up for them, because music has this power of helping people erase what they're thinking about or be present in the moment, or maybe remember something they hadn't thought about in a while, or be hopeful for something they don't have yet coming in the future. So
Right.
Music could do all those kinds of things. And if I disappear from that, then I'm missing the obligation that the community has given to me from this platform.
That's interesting. Do you ever feel like that could go too far where you start living your entire life for the people who want to be connected with you? And how do you keep yourself grounded?
The people that want to be connected to me are still the rubber balls. They're still the rubber balls. And when we lost Rib, I had to drop it all. So I understand, and I've learned, especially from that they do bounce and I can pick it back up again. As long as I continue to show back up, as long as I don't just give it up forever and it's done, as long as I could pick it back up, then they're still going to be there. And so I don't feel, I've heard some artists say to me that they've given up meet and greets because they're tired of hearing people's depressing stories right before they go on stage.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I completely reject that idea, because the reason you have a meet and greet, the reason people even care to meet you is because of some kind of respect that you have earned,
of course,
through their connection with you. And to ignore that and to not want to engage in that is missing a huge part of why we're musicians in the first place.
I think that's a good point. I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about meaning. You could take somebody's story, a depressing story, quote unquote, depressing story, and the meaning that you could assign to it is, this is a downer. This is not energizing me. I don't want to hear this. Or alternatively, you could say, this is exactly why I need to perform tonight. This is exactly why I need to show up. And it's the same circumstance, but you've just assigned different, whether you're right or wrong, actually, you've just assigned different meaning that's actually going to be serving you and the people you want to serve.
Man, that's so right. And I learned too that it could be a funny song. It could be a serious, it doesn't matter the content, you're connecting in some way. And if you don't assign that kind of meaning to it, if you don't do that, it's just another 90-minute set. You get paid, you go back on the bus and go to another town.
Right.
Eventually, that energy is going to run out. Eventually, you're going to go, I'm good. I don't need to go do another gig. Why would you, unless you've assigned that kind of meaning that's more important than just another job?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you're talking about humor a little bit, whether it's funny or serious or whatever. Talk to me about Earl and where Earl came from. I got to know.
Yeah, Earl, to go back to early in our conversation when we were just kind of doing everything we could on social media to get people's attention. Look at me, look, this is funny, look at this. Yeah. We did that before Earl, who's kind of just a ultra country boy alter egos, lack of a better term.
Yeah.
We were trying to promote music coming out. An album is in 2012, around this time. So 2011, we were trying to think of some viral videos to kind of get us out there, to kind of get some kind of buzz on social media. So we were trying different videos to just see if something lasted. And Earl wasn't any more than that kind of idea. It wasn't some big grand idea, some big, this will become an apparel company one day when we say yee yee. It had nothing to do with any of that. Just another video. My brother Tyler was working with me, and I had that voice, this country voice, and he said, let's go to the country guy. And so we took a little camera, and we're out at mom and dad's place, and Tyler says, I think this guy's name is Earl Dibbles Jr. as we're driving to film it. And I said, I like it, but why do you say that? And he said, I went to college with a guy named Dibbles. I think it's just a great name. He said, Earl is pretty much the country's name I can think
it's
of,
classic.
And
exactly.
It has to be Junior. And I was like, I got no argument with that.
No, it's so funny, man, to see that and to see how that character's developed. Do you notice people being offended about anything that you share, or do they take it in the nature that it's intended, which is just lighten up, have some fun, let's joke around?
What's crazy is at the very beginning, there's some people in the industry, in the music industry, they're like, oh, you guys are just putting a nail in the coffin on your career.
Really?
You're putting stuff out that's making fun of country people. That is the last thing you'll ever do. And I just had a strong feeling against that thought, because I was like, man, we're not making fun. This is a celebration of it.
Yeah, you're enjoying
this represents aunts and uncles and cousins and friends and people we work with. I mean, there's a lot of Earl inside me. So to say that would be to say I'm making fun of myself. And Earl is so vulnerable, he's just, it's like you want to give him a hug. You almost feel sorry for him. And since we launched him and since he came into the world, people seem to really embrace it, no matter what their thoughts are.
I love it, man. I think it's hilarious. Like it's, and you got to make fun of yourself. You said make fun of yourself. Like that's actually the point. Like if you take yourself too seriously about everything, like how miserable would your life be? Like you should make fun of your weird quirks and your culture and, things that are funny. It's funny, but people just don't want to laugh anymore. It seems like sometimes just lighten up and relax.
You said it, man. Can't take yourself too seriously. That's what it's all about. And there was other artists that were like, man, you can't put yourself out there like that. That just ruins the integrity of your art.
You're not a professional anymore, right?
Yeah. Like I don't take my art that seriously.
Did you imagine, I think I read somewhere that, did you start playing the guitar when you must have been a teenager, maybe, if I remember right?
I was at 14. Yeah.
14. Okay. And did you know you wanted to be a country music artist at that point? Or was it, hey, this will get me the girls and that's about it?
No, I had no idea. It only started because I wanted my girlfriend to like me a little bit more.
It was your girlfriend. Got it. I knew it had to be something with girls, right?
That was it, man. I mean, I had this thought, like, if I start now, because girls obviously like the guitar players in junior high where I was. There's a couple people that play guitar. Girls like them more. I don't know why. That's like the mystery of the universe. I don't know why. So I just thought, man, I need an edge. Like I don't have that much going for me. I need some kind of edge. So there was an old guitar in the closet that my grandmother had tried to play. And one day I pulled it out on a mission. And there was a book in there that said where to put your fingers on the fretboard. Mm-hmm. So I just literally looked at the book, mimicked where the dots were on the frets, would strum and strum and strum until my fingers were sore, until it sounded like an actual chord. And that was it.
Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams you'd be exactly where you are today with all of this crazy stuff and millions of people engaged with you and want to connect with you and be part of your life to some degree?
Absolutely not. Without question, absolutely not. I didn't have any of that planned at all. So yeah, no way. I thought guitar. I've said this for 20 years. I've said the sentence, how did music get me here?
Yeah. Have you ever been able to answer that question for yourself?
Well, it's interesting because kind of what we've talked about on this podcast about assigning meaning to something like this, mm-hmm. right? It's then I start to think as I get older, like, man, maybe this is all for something. Like maybe the whole guitar thing and trying to get a girl and then trying to come up with the funny video. Like maybe there was an actual design to all this that actually matters. And I didn't realize that when I was a kid, but now I look at it and go, this is my calling, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Well, Granger, I know you're on a time crunch. You're a busy man, and I want to be respectful of that. Do you want to tell the guys about the spring lineup coming out really quickly, and maybe even the music video that we referenced earlier in the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. You could find me on all things social, Granger Smith. No underscores, no nothing. Just Granger Smith. That's the same as YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all of it. And we have an apparel company called Yee Apparel, and you can get that through grangersmith.com. You could also get it yee.com. A lot of people think that's the easiest way, yee.com. And we come up with new spring launches from here in Central Texas. Me and my two brothers work on this. It's just like a passion project. It's an extension of the music, extension of the ideas, and we love it. And people ask, what does yee mean? I always say it means live life to the fullest.
There it is. I dig it. I dig it, man. Well, I appreciate you. Man, I love how you show up. I appreciate also you sharing some of the rawness of the highs and the lows and the extreme lows. And, as you shared your story about River, and I saw that several years ago, that hit me deep because I've got 4 children of my own. And I admire you and I respect you for the way that you handled that and the positive that's come from it. So I appreciate you taking some time with us, man. I know the guys are going to dig the conversation. So thanks for joining us.
Brother, the respect is mutual, man. I love what you do. Keep doing it. And I'm grateful to be on the show.
Right on, brother. We'll stay in touch.